The cover of Ushiro no Shoumen Kamui-san Volume 1 depicts a schoolgirl running in terror from a horde of ghostly hands reaching out for her, setting a clear horror theme for the story. The story begins with a classic urban legend scenario. A terrifying call comes in. Hello? I am Mary-san. I am right in front of your house. On the bed, a phone rings menacingly, surrounded by Ofuda talismans, as someone screams in denial. A young high school girl with short black hair, Mimizuka Shizuka, is in a state of panic. She desperately tries to get away from her phone as it continues to ring incessantly, the sound echoing her frantic breaths. Shizuka slams a door shut behind her, panting heavily. She stumbles into an office, but her relief is short-lived as a desk phone begins to ring, mirroring the call she was trying to escape. Her face contorts in pure terror as she realizes there's nowhere to run. The phone, strangely adorned with an evil spirit ward talisman, continues its relentless ringing. A voice, cold and clear, speaks from the receiver. Hello? I am Mary-san. The sheer terror is too much for Shizuka, who collapses to the floor. A woman's figure appears before her, beginning to introduce herself with the words, I am. Suddenly, a charming blonde-haired man appears, finishing the sentence with a smirk. Azuma, he is Kamui. But right beside him, the true horrifying form of the ghost Mary-san materializes, a blood-soaked girl with a monstrous grin, whispering, right behind you. Shizuka screams, caught between the two. The ghost, Mary-san, seems confused by the interruption and demands to know who they are. Kamui, completely unfazed by the terrifying specter, casually holds her and remarks, must be a pain talking like that all the time. In a shocking turn of events, Kamui grabs Mary-san's face and licks the blood from her cheek, commenting on how she's dirted her beautiful face. The ghost lets out a horrified shriek, completely caught off guard by his bizarre action. The panel explains the legend of Mary-san, an evil spirit that relentlessly pursues its targets through phone calls before dragging them to the other world. The ghost herself looks flustered and embarrassed by the strange situation. Kamui dramatically rips his shirt open, revealing a chiseled physique. With a serious expression, he declares to the terrified ghost, playtime's over. Prepare to be exorcised. While Shizuka watches in horror, a narration box explains the logic behind the impending exorcism. Evil spirits and ghosts are symbols of death. The air is filled with slapping sounds and moans. The outrageous method is revealed. Because sex is an activity that boosts life, spirits are deathly afraid of it. Kamui is actively exorcising the ghost in this manner as she begs him to stop. Kamui mocks Mary-san's signature style of sneaking up on people from behind, asking how she likes it now that the tables are turned. He shouts triumphantly as he continues the bizarre ritual, which is depicted as burning away her evil energy. Mary-san's terror and pain inexplicably begin to morph into pleasure. Her protests turn to moans as she admits that his unique approach has awakened something within her. The ritual reaches its explosive conclusion. With a final surge of energy, the evil spirit exorcism is complete, and Mary-san is seemingly vanquished in a state of climactic ecstasy. Sometime later, the town's mayor thanks the now fully dressed Kamui, praising the charismatic psychic for his work. Shizuka, looking drained, apologizes for Kamui's aloofness, explaining that he's suffering from post-nut depression. As they get into a car, the mayor asks what method of exorcism was used. Shizuka, clearly flustered and wanting to avoid the embarrassing truth, simply states that it's a trade secret. While walking down the street, Kamui complains to Shizuka that she's always too slow to help, letting the perceptive spirits get away. She retorts that he should try putting himself in her shoes as the bait. The scene shifts to a monologue by Shizuka. She introduces herself as Mimizuka Shizuka, a normal high schooler with the unfortunate ability to see ghosts. Because of her ability, she explains that she now lives with Kamui-san at his office, working as his assistant for free. The panel shows the Kamui Psychological Counseling office building. Shizuka admits that she was reluctant to live alone with a man at first, but now her feelings have changed. Just as she's lost in thought, Kamui suddenly grabs her from behind, startling her and causing her to cry out his name in surprise. He has mistaken her for a piece of furniture. Still on the floor after being grabbed, Shizuka calmly points out to a dazed Kamui that the sofa he's looking for is over there. He looks at his hand, then at the sofa, slowly processing his mistake. Kamui nonchalantly flops onto the actual sofa, muttering that his mistake explains why the floor felt so uncomfortable. As Shizuka watches him, resigned to his eccentric nature, she tells him he should get some sleep while thinking to herself about the very strange man she lives with. As Shizuka watches him, her thoughts drift to his strange obsession. She knows that Kamui is a freak of the highest degree, a man who is only attracted to ghosts, which he enthusiastically surrounds himself with. Tucked into her bed, Shizuka reflects on her situation. It's because of his bizarre fetish that she can live there with peace of mind, knowing he doesn't find her attractive at all. However, a part of her finds this fact slightly irritating. As she stews in her thoughts, a voice from the other room yells at her to shut up and go to sleep, ending the night on a typically chaotic note. Chapter 2 begins with Mimizuka Shizuka's inner monologue. Since she was a child, she has kept her gaze fixed on her shoes, afraid to look up. If she does, she'll make eye contact. The reason for her fear is immediately apparent. If she looks up, she makes eye contact not with people, but with the grotesque and horrifying spirits that are invisible to everyone else. Forsaken by the shrines, temples, and churches that could offer no help, Shizuka has lived her lonely days in constant fear, isolated by her terrifying ability. That is, until she crosses paths with a strange man. As the spirits swarm around her, a blonde-haired man in a coat appears before her. Shizuka screams in shock as the spirits react wildly to the man's presence. Even a ghostly rabbit-like creature is startled by his appearance. With a powerful kick, the man sends the spirits flying. He then nonchalantly looks down at Shizuka, who is stunned by the display, and calls out to her. His hey sends a jolt of fear through Shizuka, and she immediately turns and bolts, running away as fast as she can. In all honesty, she ran with all her might. To her, this mysterious man was far scarier than any ghost she had ever encountered. The man, Kamui-san, gives chase. He's impressed by her speed and, more importantly, her potent ability to attract spirits. On that day, Shizuka had a horrifying realization. She was scouted to be used as bait. Following this fateful encounter, some time passes. The scene shifts to a moonlit night. Shizuka is running through a park, panting heavily, clearly in the middle of another chase. We are now in the present time. Shizuka is still running, breathlessly questioning why she has to be the one to deal with the spirit known as Tiku-Tiku. The scene flashes back to Kamui-san explaining the urban legend to her in a cafe. He tells the story of a schoolgirl up north who was involved in a train accident in winter. Her body was bisected, but her lower half was never found. Shizuka, trying to enjoy a parfait, is visibly distressed. She asks why he would take her to a family restaurant just to tell her such a terrifying story. Shizuka erupts in anger, demanding to know what he's done to her. Kamui-san calmly explains that the ghost, Tiku-Tiku, appears within 3 days to those who hear its story. He declares it's their next job, and as a cruel farewell gift, he'll cover her parfait. Back in the present, Shizuka is running for her life, panting and exhausted from the relentless pursuit. Suddenly, a dismembered, ghostly hand slaps down hard onto the ground right behind her. Panting, she glances back and sees the hand. With a cry of "It's here," she pushes herself to keep running, the footsteps of the ghost echoing behind her. The ghost reveals itself fully, Tiku-Tiku, the upper torso of a girl, crawling at a horrifying speed with its hands. Shizuka lets out a terrified scream. In her panic, Shizuka trips and falls to the pavement. As Tiku-Tiku crawls menacingly towards her, a voice praises her, saying good job luring it out. On the ground, Shizuka looks back in terror as she hears someone rushing towards her from a distance. Kamui-san arrives on the scene with dramatic flair. As Tiku-Tiku looms over a screaming Shizuka, he declares, "The rest is my job." Tiku-Tiku, despite being only a torso, is capable of chasing down prey at terrifying speeds. However, therein lies its weakness. The spirit's weakness is its inability to stop on a dime or make sharp turns. Exploiting this, Kamui-san corners the ghost. Then, in a shocking move that defies all logic of exorcism, he lunges forward and forcefully kisses the spirit, leaving Shizuka utterly bewildered. The bizarre act leaves both Tiku-Tiku and Shizuka completely stunned. As they reel in confusion, Shizuka starts to process the situation, wondering how Kamui-san's usual awful exorcism method could possibly work on a spirit that's only a torso. Shizuka realizes that Kamui-san's usual awful exorcism method requires a lower half to work. But since Tiku-Tiku is only a torso, that method can't be used here. Kamui-san turns to Shizuka, remarking that his assistant still has a long way to go. He then pins her to the ground, bringing his face close to hers. Instead of attacking the ghost further, Kamui-san licks Shizuka's ear. The bizarre act sends shockwaves of sensation through her body, causing her to convulse as the ghost simultaneously reacts. Shizuka is overwhelmed. The ears, she screams, wondering why he chose that spot. As if reading her mind, Kamui-san correctly guesses what she was thinking, leaving her utterly mortified. He begins to explain his method. There's a phenomenon called phantom pain, where one feels pain from a lost limb. In this case, since the ears and genitals are intimately related, by stimulating Shizuka's ear, he's creating a sensation in the ghost's missing lower half. Kamui-san dramatically dubs this phenomenon phantom ecstasy. Overwhelmed by the sensation, Tiku believes she has finally found her other half and peacefully fades away. With the ghost gone, a stunned and embarrassed Shizuka can only look at Kamui-san and mutter, "What the actual fuck?" The scene flashes back again to their conversation, where Kamui-san elaborates that Tiku is a ghost born from an accident, similar to another urban legend, Kashima-san, who also steals body parts they are missing from the living. As they leave the area, Shizuka is irate, shouting at Kamui-san for endangering her lower half, all for the price of a single parfait. Shizuka reflects on her new reality. She now works for an extremely exploitative boss, but thanks to the constant threat, she finds herself looking down at her feet significantly less often. Kamui-san then casually adds that he forgot to mention something. He informs her that the story of Kashima-san works the same way. The ghost will appear within 3 days of hearing about it. Having just been told the story, Shizuka lets out a final, furious scream of, "What the hell did you do to me?" The chapter concludes back in the cafe, with Shizuka furiously stuffing her face with a parfait. As another client looks on in confusion, Kamui-san calmly explains her behavior as simply a farewell gift. The scene opens with a magazine feature on Kamui, a famous and sexy psychic. He's introduced as a Tokyo medium spirit analyst whose work isn't just for show but yields real results. He's even shown helping a rescue operation and is described as someone who hunts evil spirits for fun. In a classroom, a group of high school girls are gushing over Kamui's article. One of them, Kyuko, exclaims how hot he is, while another agrees he's cool as hell. Kyuko then turns to her friend Shizuka, asking for her opinion on the psychic. Shizuka is sweating profusely, looking distressed. Her friends notice and ask if she's okay. She forces a reply, claiming it's just her fast metabolism. Internally, however, she panics, knowing she can't possibly tell them the truth about her connection to Kamui. Shizuka despairs internally. Not only is Kamui a massive pervert who lusts after ghosts, but she also has to live with him as his assistant. She flashes back to her lonely middle school years, where she was ostracized for her ability to see spirits. Now that she's finally made friends in high school, she's terrified of them finding out her secret. Another girl with pigtails, Inagawa, approaches the group with a smug look. She calls out to them, asking if they're talking about the sexy psychic Kamui. Inagawa mockingly calls Kamui a hack, which angers Kyuko. Inagawa clarifies that she prefers the term supernatural maniac. Brushing off her friend's confusion and annoyance, she tells him to forget the fraud and proposes they try experiencing spirits firsthand. With a wide, sharp-toothed grin, Inagawa enthusiastically presents a sheet of paper to her friends. It's a handmade board for the spirit summoning game, Kakuri-san. An explanation of Kakuri-san is given. It's a popular form of fortune-telling in Japan that summons a fox spirit using a sheet of paper and a coin. However, breaking the rules can result in a curse. The scene then shifts to the school hallway after class, with the bell ringing as students head home. Despite the warnings, the girls are gathered around the Kakuri-san board, ready to play. Inagawa looks determined, while Kyuko seems intrigued. Shizuka, however, is filled with dread, sensing that this can't possibly lead to anything good. Shizuka can already see a hostile aura radiating from the board, a dark shadow buzzing with energy. She knows it's dangerous and she has to stop it, but she's paralyzed by the fear that her friends will think she's weird and hate her. In her panic, Shizuka imagines calling her boss, Kamui, for help, asking him to discreetly whack the spirit without showing himself. She knows it's an unreasonable request, but she's desperate. She visualizes her high school life ending in disaster as Kamui deals with the Kakuri-san in his own perverse way. Shizuka decides against calling for help, realizing she needs to figure something out on her own. Her friends, oblivious to her inner turmoil, look on with concern and confusion, with one remarking how close they were to such a sicko. Shizuka asks where Inagawa got the paper. Inagawa explains that a senior gave it to her, recalling something Kamui once said, "The danger of a cursed object depends on how it's made and the material used, so a homemade one shouldn't be too bad." Inagawa continues her story, revealing that the senior who gave her the paper fell ill with a mysterious disease and is now hospitalized, which makes the situation seem real and dangerous. Kyuko, however, perks up at the mention that Kakuri-san can also do love divinations, while Shizuka realizes she can't give up. Suddenly, a menacing, shadowy figure appears before Shizuka. A tall, imposing spirit with fox-like features has been summoned, its dark form radiating power. One of the girls cries out in a panic, realizing it's too late to back out now. An insanely powerful-looking spirit has been summoned. Only Shizuka can see it clearly, and it's glaring directly at her. While she's frozen in fear, the oblivious Inagawa is excited, wondering who gets to ask the first question. Inagawa instructs the others to start the chant. As they place their fingers on the coin, Shizuka feels an intense wave of hostility, sensing the immense danger they are in. In the darkened classroom, the four girls begin the ritual, chanting together. Kakuri-san, Kakuri-san. Please come out. If you're here, please let us know. A sinister, smiling face of the fox spirit materializes in the darkness above them. Kyuko and Shizuka both feel a sudden chill as the atmosphere in the room grows heavy and menacing. The coin on the paper begins to move on its own. The girls shout in shock and disbelief. Kyuko looks on stunned, as their game takes a terrifyingly real turn. The massive fox spirit looms directly behind a terrified Shizuka, who is so scared she can't even speak. Her friends, however, are thrilled, believing they're finally having the supernatural experience they longed for. As the coin spells out a message, Shizuka realizes she can't handle this alone and desperately thinks of Kamui. Suddenly, the coin stops moving. Shizuka looks over her shoulder, as the presence behind her seems to have vanished. Just as Shizuka calls for him in her mind, Kamui appears at the classroom door, looking annoyed. For fuck's sake, he complains, you could at least told me where the classroom is. As the menacing fox spirit dissipates behind the students, Shizuka tearfully calls out his name, a wave of relief washing over her. To her horror, Kamui is completely shirtless and glistening, as if he just rushed out of a shower. He praises her for holding out, but as he turns to leave, Shizuka is left utterly flustered by his state of undress, thinking to herself, I'm screwed. Shizuka is completely mortified by Kamui's shirtless appearance. While grateful that he came to save them, she panics at the absurdity of the situation, thinking there's no way she can explain why a half-naked man just showed up in their classroom. Meanwhile, her friends are completely oblivious to Kamui's presence. Their attention is still fixated on the game board, exclaiming that the coin is shaking intensely. Shizuka is dumbfounded that this is what they're focused on amidst the chaos. The perspective splits, showing what only Shizuka can see, the powerful Kakuri-san spirit facing off against a shirtless Kamui. Kamui smugly recalls Shizuka's desperate plea for him to come discreetly, which he has clearly ignored. Her friends look dazed as Shizuka wonders what is happening. Kamui stands confidently, putting on a hoodie. He remarks that he never said her request for discretion couldn't be done, implying he chose this dramatic, shirtless entrance on purpose. Kamui begins to explain the phenomenon of astral projection, where a living person's soul unintentionally exits their body, making them similar to a ghost. Shizuka is shocked to hear the term as the Kakuri spirit prepares for what's to come. Kamui elaborates that a powerful spirit, like the Kakuri-san, can do more than that. It can forcefully pull out the souls of others. The scene erupts into chaos as the astral bodies of Shizuka's friends are dragged from their physical forms, sprouting fox ears and tails as they're influenced by the spirit's power. Their physical bodies, however, remain focused on the moving coin. Kamui begins his unorthodox exorcism. He starts spanking the fox-eared astral form of one of the girls, causing her to yelp in surprise and pleasure. At the same time, the coin on the board continues to spell out random letters, like SHOTP. The bizarre ritual intensifies. The coin is now rapidly bouncing between the letters to spell come over and over. This corresponds with the Kakuri spirit itself, which is now moaning ecstatically from Kamui's actions. Shizuka, forced to witness this lewd display up close, can only hide her face in horror. With a final resounding slap, the exorcism is complete. The Kakuri spirit dissolves in a wave of pleasure. Back in the physical world, the girls slump onto the desk, exhausted. Kyuko wonders aloud if something just hit her, while her friend asks if she's sick, completely unaware of what just transpired. After the incident, the friends pack up to leave. Kyuko apologizes to Shizuka for getting them into this weird shit. A guilty-looking Inagawa offers to treat everyone to Starbucks the next day. Shizuka, immensely relieved that everyone is safe, laughs and says she's fine, happily accepting the offer. As she walks home alone, Shizuka reflects on the day's events. She's overjoyed that her friends are unharmed and that her high school life isn't over. She smiles, thinking about how Kamui, despite his methods, managed to save her, and she recalls his smug reaction to her request for him to be discreet. Feeling a surge of gratitude, Shizuka decides on the perfect way to thank him. She resolves to go back to the office and whip up a batch of the curry that he loves so much for dinner. The scene shifts to Kamui talking with a school official. He casually claims he was just there to pick up his little sister. The official is skeptical, questioning him about sleeping in the hallway. A closing note explains that Shizuka had to come and apologize profusely for all the trouble he caused, solidifying their strange, newly revealed sibling-like relationship. The story begins with an ancient legend about possessions. These entities are known as lost spirits. In the present day, we see several trash bags, one of which seems to be the focus. A young boy throws the trash out, locks his door, and walks away with a sense of finality. However, his relief is short-lived. He's horrified, realizing that despite throwing it out so many times, it keeps coming back. He screams in terror as the object of his fear, a traditional Japanese doll, has reappeared in his home once again. The scene shifts to Kamui-san's office, where he and Mimizuka Shizuka are examining the very same doll. Shizuka identifies it as a cursed doll, which made its previous owner feel unwell. Shizuka, clearly unnerved, begs Kamui-san not to leave her alone with the doll, while he calmly tells her not to stare at it so much. The doll, seemingly inanimate, gives a creepy, knowing wink. We hear the doll's inner thoughts. She calls the humans dumb and reveals her name is Koichi. She boasts about having warded off monks and officials, feeling confident that these two can't resist her. Koichi chuckles to herself, deciding to wait for the right moment to get them, ensuring they'll be scared witless. Koichi observes Kamui-san sorting through a pile of photos and wonders if it's related to his job. Suddenly, a hand reaches for a box of tissues. Koichi is confused. She sees Kamui-san is not sorting photos but has grabbed some tissues, with one particular photo of a girl selected. Kamui-san looks annoyed, muttering about the bad timing, while Koichi watches from a distance. A look of utter disgust crosses Koichi's face as she comes to a conclusion. He's a pervert. Koichi isn't the only one. Shizuka, blushing with embarrassment and anger, yells at Kamui-san to do whatever he's doing in his own room, thinking he has a horrible kink. Shizuka tells Kamui-san she's throwing the photos out. Koichi, meanwhile, observes that Shizuka seems surprisingly normal. Kamui-san collapses onto the couch in frustration, lamenting his messed up precious photos. Shizuka sighs, thinking he has a very unstable job. Just then, a package arrives. Kamui-san decides it's time to get to work and starts opening the box, piquing a confused Koichi's curiosity. To Koichi's absolute horror, the box contains a tiny doll-sized swimsuit. Kamui-san admires the swimsuit, noting that it looks like it'll fit Koichi perfectly and that he can change her clothes now. He declares it's time to work, but decides to take a photo first before proceeding. He pulls out his phone and opens the camera app, preparing to take the picture. Filled with terror, Koichi covers her mouth in shock. Convinced she'll be violated if she stays, she knows she has to get away immediately. A wave of panic washes over her as she desperately searches for an escape. Certain that Kamui-san intends to break her, her eyes dart around until she spots a narrow gap, a potential path to freedom. As Kamui-san enters the room, his expression is grim and determined. Meanwhile, Koichi, having slipped through the gap, finds herself in a dark hallway, trembling with fear. She enters a room and is shocked by what she finds. The walls are covered in newspaper clippings, strange masks line the shelves, and there's even a body pillow on the bed. What is this place? Her eyes dart around the room, taking in the bizarre collection of news clippings, voodoo props, and a mysterious wooden box. Just as she reaches for the box, Kamui-san appears and sternly tells her not to touch it, causing her to yelp and fall back in fright. Recovering quickly, Koichi decides she must fight back. She smirks, thinking that if he knows she's a cursed doll, she should run away. Kamui-san cuts to the chase, taking off his shirt and revealing his muscular physique. Koichi screams in terror, not knowing what to expect. Trying to bargain for her freedom, Koichi reveals that she knows what's in the box and what the clippings are for. He's investigating supernatural disappearances. Unfazed, Kamui-san repeats his intention to cut to the chase, his face shadowed and his intent unclear. Shizuka, hearing the commotion from the other room, calls out to Kamui-san, asking if he's all right. She gets a glimpse of his shirtless back and tells him not to come any closer, clearly flustered. In a desperate move, Koichi grabs the wooden box, threatening to smash his important treasure if he comes any closer. Shizuka, peering into the room, is shocked to see the cursed doll. Koichi laughs maniacally, enjoying the sight of Kamui-san's distress. But her victory is short-lived as she loses her footing on the shelf, her long hair getting tangled around the box. Both Kamui-san and Shizuka watch in horror as the doll and the precious box begin to fall from the shelf. As Koichi plummets, she panics. Her hair is caught, she can't reach it, and for a moment she believes this is the end. Her life flashes before her eyes, a boring existence spanning 100 years, passed between countless owners, only to be forgotten and discarded time and time again. In that moment of freefall, her deepest, simplest desire is revealed. All she ever wanted was for someone to notice her. Just before she hits the ground, Kamui-san lunges forward and catches her. Koichi is saved, but Shizuka notes how surprisingly heavy she is. Sitting on the floor, safe but confused, Koichi asks Kamui-san why he saved her instead of his precious box. Kamui-san looks down at her and explains simply that he couldn't ignore a helpless, crying girl. But his tender moment is fleeting. He suddenly grabs Koichi, declaring he still has work to do, causing her to scream once more. To everyone's surprise, the work involves Kamui-san vigorously cleaning Koichi, even washing out her mouth. She protests that it's dirty in there, while Shizuka watches, utterly bewildered. Finally, the bizarre cleaning session is over. Kamui-san is exhausted and soaked, while Koichi sits in a puddle, looking dazed but clean. Koichi is astonished. She suddenly feels incredibly light, a sensation she's never experienced before. Shizuka can only watch in confusion. Kamui-san explains to a bewildered Shizuka that this was the doll ritual. He clarifies that the resentment dolls build up comes not from inherent evil, but from simple neglect. To purify them, they need to be cleaned often, especially after a stressful event. Shizuka asks if this means not all dolls are evil. While examining the now peaceful Koichi, Kamui-san says he never claimed that, but confirms, this one's in good shape. Shizuka finally puts the pieces together. She realizes Kamui-san bought the swimsuit to clean the doll, questioning if his actions weren't just a kink after all. Kamui-san explains that the fact Koichi hasn't moved on after the ritual means she still longs to be in this world. He decides that until Koichi figures out what she truly wants, she can stay in his office. The doll looks up, surprised by his offer. Curiosity getting the better of her, Shizuka finally opens the box she thought was Kamui-san's perverted treasure. She's shocked to find it's filled with more photos, but these are evidence from his investigations, showing people with their faces blurred out. Staring at the wall of clippings and evidence, Shizuka panics, worrying that the police will come and arrest them. She realizes with a sense of dread that Kamui's problems are just getting started. The scene opens with Mimizuka Shizuka peeking nervously from behind a wall. In another panel, Kamui-san holds a photo stating he can't find the person he's looking for. Elsewhere, a young girl with light hair, the missing person in question, wonders aloud if her disappearance is the work of spirits. Shizuka walks down a hallway, carrying a small doll-like girl named Koichi. Koichi asks about Shizuka's job, wanting to know why they're looking for spirits. Shizuka explains that they need Koichi's help precisely because spirits are strong at detecting other spirits. Shizuka fawns over Koichi, exclaiming how cute and amazing she is, and asks Kamui-san to praise her too. Koichi, embarrassed, protests that she's not a child but is actually 100 years old. Still blushing from the praise, Koichi strikes a pose. Nearby, Kamui-san reviews the case details, mentioning that according to witnesses, the missing girl vanished suddenly, leading them to believe she was spirited away. Koichi introduces herself through an internal monologue. She is a cursed doll, and she now works in Kamui-san's office because he saved her life. She also reveals that, for some reason, she is madly in love with him. As for Shizuka, Koichi claims not to know her. Koichi's inner thoughts continue as she observes Shizuka from behind. She notes that Shizuka gives off a decoy vibe, and that her job is to act as a decoy for Mr. Kamui. Koichi recalls observing Shizuka and has noticed that she is constantly trying to seduce Kamui-san, imagining various scenarios from making him breakfast to transforming into a seductive octopus monster. Determined, Koichi states she can't let Shizuka steal Mr. Kamui from her. Meanwhile, Kamui-san gives a thumbs up to a woman in a bikini, who reports that she has dealt with a spirit as requested. He praises her for her amazing work. Koichi schemes to herself, believing that if she can prove herself useful to Kamui-san, he won't need that other girl, Shizuka, anymore. In the background, Shizuka looks on oblivious. The scene shifts to a dark, narrow alleyway between buildings. Koichi peers into the oppressive darkness, sensing something. Koichi reports that the missing girl isn't in the alley. Shizuka looks around, confused, asking what happened and where the girl could have gone. Kamui-san looks on in thought. Koichi cheerfully skips away, deciding to find the spirit herself. She believes this is her chance to finally win Mr. Kamui's favor. As Koichi reaches for a sliding door, she suddenly stops, sensing something amiss. She glances back over her shoulder with a questioning look. A horrifying pale face with massive, dark eyes pushes through a crack in the wall, startling Koichi, who jumps back in terror. Koichi gulps in fear, her eyes wide with terror as ghostly hands reach out from the darkness and grab her head. Suddenly, it's Shizuka who is violently pulled away by an unseen force, crying out in shock. Koichi can only watch stunned. As Shizuka is dragged away, she screams out, calling for the little girl, referring to Koichi, who is still frozen in fear. Being pulled through the crack in the wall, Shizuka desperately yells for Koichi to go and get Mr. Kamui. Koichi stands trembling and flustered after the incident. Kamui-san rushes to the scene, calling out to her and asking what happened. Koichi reports that the little girl was taken. A sinister thought crosses her mind. This is her chance. If she plays her cards right, Shizuka won't be in her way anymore. Shizuka's horrified face flashes through Koichi's mind, along with memories of Shizuka's kindness. The person tells Kamui-san that Koichi has been swept away, but Koichi realizes it was Shizuka, not her. A look of determination washes over Koichi's face. Clutching her fist, she declares that she will save Shizuka, though she wonders how she'll actually do it. With newfound resolve, Koichi's eyes glint as she prepares to take action. Having been pulled into the spirit's dimension, Shizuka pants, relieved to be alive. She looks over and is surprised to find a small, unconscious girl lying on the floor next to her. Shizuka gathers the collapsed girl into her arms. It's the very girl they were searching for. She tells the unconscious girl she can relax now, noting that she seemed to have just collapsed here out of nowhere. Trapped inside the crack, Shizuka realizes there's no escape. The space is dangerously narrow. She then hears a strange noise coming from within the darkness of the crack. The source of the noise reveals itself. A grotesque spirit with a distorted, elongated body and wide, terrified eyes emerges from the walls of the crack. A description of the spirit appears, identifying it as the crack woman. She is a spirit that appears in the gaps of furniture or buildings, and is said to cause insanity in her victims or drag them into the crevices. Shizuka is terrified, but she clutches the unconscious girl tightly, telling herself that she must stay calm for the girl's sake. The crack woman shambles towards Shizuka and the girl. As Shizuka comforts the child, she looks up to see the spirit looming over them. Just as the crack woman is about to strike, she is suddenly bound by black, ribbon-like tendrils. Both she and Shizuka look on in surprise. Koichi appears from the crack, declaring game over to the spirit. Shizuka calls out her name in relief. Koichi explains that she had planted some of her hairs on Shizuka, so finding her wasn't hard. Using her hair, Koichi violently slams the restrained crack woman back into the wall, pushing her deeper into the crevice. Shizuka stares as the crack woman's rear end gets stuck in the crack. Koichi looks on, her plan seemingly working. With the spirit stuck, Kamui-san's face appears menacingly behind her. He announces that it's his turn to act. As Kamui-san begins his work, The crack woman lets out a surprised and scandalized eek. The spirit moans in a mixture of pain and pleasure. Outside, slapping sounds are heard against the building as Kamui-san continues his unorthodox exorcism. With a heart in her eye, the spirit ecstatically declares, "I've been filled up," as the panel proclaims that she has been exorcised. Back outside, Shizuka wakes up. Kamui-san explains that he dealt with the crack woman, allowing them to escape. He then scolds her, telling her not to be so reckless next time. Shizuka turns to Koichi and thanks her for the save. Koichi deflects the praise, saying only Kamui-san can truly exorcise spirits, and apologizes. Koichi gets uncomfortably close to Shizuka, who protests. With a smug grin, Koichi explains that having a decoy makes the job easier, so she had no choice but to save her. The chapter ends on a comedic note. Kamui-san, looking irritated, states that while he was doing his job, something troublesome happened. His penis got stuck in a crack. The scene opens with a close-up of a girl with short black hair, peacefully enjoying a cup of bubble tea. She is out with her cheerful blonde friend in the bustling city of Shibuya. The blonde girl exclaims that the day is just getting started and eagerly tells her friend to follow. The black-haired girl, whose name we learn is Shizuka, is having her first day off with her cheerful classmate Kyoko. They explore the city, their contrasting personalities on full display, as the energetic Kyoko leads the way. In a bookstore, Kyoko excitedly shows Shizuka a book with impressive art. Shizuka agrees, happy to be sharing this fun moment with her friend. As the girls take a selfie to commemorate their wonderful day, a strange, distorted figure with a long neck appears in the background of the photo, unnoticed. Meanwhile, Shizuka talks about a magazine she bought because of someone named Mr. Kamui. Lost in the happiness of the moment, Shizuka wishes the day could last forever, though she notes she still has a secret to keep with Mr. Kamui. Kyoko, ever cheerful, playfully asks if Shizuka is interested in him. Their carefree day is abruptly interrupted by a man with light-colored hair who approaches them with a serious expression, stating that he was looking for them. The cheerful atmosphere shatters instantly. Kyoko lets out a terrified scream, and the narration ominously declares this as the end of normal life. Kyoko is utterly shocked to see that the man is Mr. Kamui, and even more surprised to hear him imply that Shizuka is his assistant. As Mr. Kamui apologizes to a confused Kyoko for the secrecy, Shizuka panics internally, worried that Kyoko will discover her connection to Kamui and what she calls his perverted hobby. Shizuka's internal crisis continues as she imagines all the perverted things they've been up to, desperate to keep her friend from finding out. Kyoko, however, seems more amazed than anything else. Mr. Kamui begins to explain the situation, revealing that the creature they encountered is a Rokurokubi, a spirit from the Edo period with a floating head and long neck. He dismisses it as common knowledge, much to Kyoko's embarrassment, as she has only just started studying spirits. As they sit together, Mr. Kamui gravely informs them that these Rokurokubi have been attacking many young women lately, a fact that Kyoko tries to laugh off nervously. He explains that their task is to exorcise the spirit. Despite being terrified, Kyoko enthusiastically asks to join the exorcism. Kamui casually agrees, but his associate immediately shouts no. The mood darkens as Mr. Kamui delivers the bad news. Kyoko is the spirit's next target, so she has no choice but to stay with them. Both Shizuka and Kyoko are left speechless and terrified by the revelation, their faces pale with shock and fear. They pull up the photo they took earlier, and to their horror, the strange figure that was once in the picture has completely vanished. No way. Kyoko gasps. Mr. Kamui clarifies that the figure wasn't the spirit itself, but a part of it. He explains that the Rokurokubi has adapted to use modern technology, as Shizuka looks down at her phone. He continues, revealing that the spirit manifests when people excessively edit their photos, a common practice in modern social media culture. The danger becomes imminent as Kamui explains the spirit targets those who possess a photo of her. He warns them that while they were talking, she has already arrived. Suddenly, Mr. Kamui senses the spirit's presence, exclaiming that his radar is up. In the background, Kyoko lets out a piercing scream of terror. Shizuka is completely overcome with fear, her face spiraling in despair as she thinks to herself, "It's over for me." In a comedic twist, while Shizuka is having a meltdown, Kyoko is looking at Mr. Kamui with stars in her eyes, thinking how cool he is for facing the danger head-on without looking down. As Kamui makes a cryptic comment about honoring ancestors, The girl's blood runs cold. The disembodied head of the Rokuro Kubi appears right beside them, and they can only stare in open-mouth horror, their minds going blank with fear. The spirit is now fully manifested, its face contorted into a wide, terrifying grin as it closes in. Shizuka and Kyoko cling to each other, trembling as they realize the ghost is upon them, its chilling presence filling the room. As the spirit lunges, Kyoko panics, screaming that a skeleton is coming to kill her. Still in the spirit's grasp, Shizuka tries to correct her friend, shouting that it's a Rokuro Kubi. In a dramatic display, Mr. Kamui rips off his shirt, revealing his muscular torso. He roars at the spirit to become his Oban offering, leaving both the Rokuro Kubi and Kyoko stunned and screaming. Now shirtless, Kamui charges forward, yelling at Kyoko to close her eyes or she'll die. The warning throws the girls into even more of a panic. Kyoko squeezes her eyes shut as the Rokuro Kubi's long necks wrap around her and the other girls. However, the spirit seems just as confused as they are. With surprising speed, Mr. Kamui grabs hold of the Rokuro Kubi's neck from behind, confidently stating, "Got you." The spirit is caught completely off guard. A loud slapping sound echoes through the room, startling Kyoko, who wonders what it is. The scene reveals Kamui is repeatedly spanking the Rokuro Kubi as his method of exorcism. Watching the bizarre ritual, Shizuka has a sudden epiphany, connecting the slapping sound to the Shinto practice of clapping to ward off evil spirits. The ritual continues, with Shizuka now on the receiving end of the spiritual clapping, moaning in a state of ecstasy. Seeing this, the impressionable Kyoko decides she wants to participate as well. As the sounds intensify, Shizuka realizes that the moans and wails aren't of pain, but are actually a form of loud, emotional Shinto prayers meant to purify. The exorcism reaches a terrifying peak as a horrifying, multi-headed snake demon manifests behind a priest figure, causing Kyoko to cry out in pure terror. Having completed the bizarre Oban ritual, Kamui looks towards the dazed Rokuro Kubi and says, "Next." The spirit, now seemingly purified, can only respond with a confused attack. The exorcism concludes with a powerful release of spiritual energy, leaving Shizuka, Kyoko, and even the Rokuro Kubi in a state of purified bliss, their bodies enveloped in a bright light as the evil is dispelled. As the light fades, the Rokuro Kubi, now in a seemingly human form, lies unconscious on a bench. Kamui warns a concerned Shizuka that it's not over yet and tells Kyoko to keep her eyes closed. Putting his shirt back on, Kamui calmly tells the girls they're all right now. Shizuka breathes a sigh of relief, thinking the ordeal is finally over for her. Completely unfazed by the terrifying and bizarre events, Kyoko is still captivated by Kamui, thinking he's so cool. She excitedly presents the magazine with his face on it, asking for an autograph. The day begins for Shizuka. At 6:30 a.m., her phone alarm buzzes, pulling her from her sleep. She lies in bed, groaning softly, not quite ready to face the morning. With a heavy sigh, she acknowledges the start of a new day. "It's morning," she murmurs to herself, her eyes still half closed. But her sleepy peace is instantly shattered. She opens her eyes fully and lets out a terrified scream as she's confronted by the sight of a shirtless Kamui-san right beside her bed. Her terror quickly turns to confusion. She thinks, noticing Kamui-san seems to be peacefully asleep, even blowing a bubble with his gum. By 8 a.m., Shizuka is dressed for school, but still fuming. "Mr. Kamui," she yells, "don't just waltz into my room like that." Meanwhile, Kamui-san, completely unfazed, just brushes his teeth. As Shizuka heads out, saying, "I'm off," Kamui-san watches her leave. Just as she starts down the stairs, he suddenly reaches out and grabs her shoulder, stopping her. On her way to school, Shizuka reflects. A message from her parents shows they've accepted her living situation with Kamui-san. She thinks about how she used to be a shut-in during middle school, terrified of the spirits only she could see. Even now, the spirits haven't completely disappeared. As she walks, she spots a long-haired spirit crawling over a railing and another ghostly figure lurking by a doorway, a constant, silent threat in her daily life. Shizuka stares ahead, her expression tense. The image of the spirit on the balcony is vivid, and the ghostly, pale face of another spirit materializes in her mind's eye. Class starts at 9 a.m. A friend points out a piece of paper on Shizuka's shirt. Shizuka recalls asking Kamui about it earlier, who coolly replied it was recycled paper. Despite the lingering weirdness, she notes that the presence of spirits is a lot less than it used to be. As the teacher lectures, Shizuka looks around the classroom. She thinks to herself how wonderful a normal high school life is, exciting, and, most importantly, free from spirits. Lunch break at 12:50 p.m. is a cheerful affair. Shizuka eats with a group of girls, her face bright with happiness. I even have friends, she thinks, treasuring these normal moments. At 3:30 p.m., class is dismissed and Shizuka heads home. But even on a train, she's not truly alone, as a terrifying spirit looms right behind her. She finally arrives home at 4:15 p.m. Shizuka walks in, only to be greeted by an absolutely bizarre scene. Kamui-san is tied up in what looks like bondage gear, screaming for it to be harder. A small, doll-like girl in a kimono Koichi asks if it's strong enough. Shizuka is frozen in horror. "What are you doing?" Shizuka shrieks. Kamui-san calmly explains that it's exercise for spirit resistance. Flustered, Shizuka tells him not to do it in the living room, lamenting that she can't always explain his behavior. Later, at 7:10 p.m., Shizuka is happily enjoying a huge dinner of gyoza. She explains to herself that spirits dislike strong smells, so she only makes large, fragrant meals like this on the weekends. At 8:30 p.m., the chaos continues. While doing laundry, Shizuka encounters a disgusting spirit, recoiling in horror. The panel contrasts this with her peaceful enjoyment of her weekend meal. Later, Shizuka unwinds in a hot bath. She thinks about how nice the bath in their office is, a perfect place to relax as she scrubs herself clean, humming contentedly. But her relaxation is pierced by a terrifying memory. She recalls a horrifying spirit with hollow eyes that used to haunt her during bath time, a memory that still sends a chill down her spine. The scene shows that even now, she is not alone. As she washes her hair, the same horrifying spirit appears, but this time, Kamui-san is also there, leaning against the shower door. In a moment of reflection, Shizuka remembers why bath time was so scary. She used to be afraid of washing her hair, and the image shows the spirit sitting on the edge of the tub while Kamui-san and Shizuka are in the bathroom. She couldn't lower her head with spirits lurking nearby, making her vulnerable. The scene shows Kamui-san getting into the tub with her, his presence a strange form of protection. Though she admits it's embarrassing to have him there, his presence has clearly helped her overcome this deep-seated fear. As she rinses her hair, Kamui-san finally gets out of the bath. Shizuka finishes her bath, a thoughtful expression on her face as she processes the day's events. Outside, Kamui-san and Koichi stand by, and through the office window, the silhouette of his bizarre training serves as a strange backdrop, hinting at the nightly rituals that protect her. At 11 p.m., Shizuka is finally able to find some peace and go to sleep. She rests in her bed, her phone charging beside her, gathering her strength for whatever strange new day awaits her. The next morning, before Shizuka is even awake, Kamui-san is already hard at work. With a fierce, determined expression, he begins his daily, life-affirming exorcism ritual. From behind, the reason for his intense focus is clear. He stands before a group of spirits that have gathered overnight, including the ever-present Koichi, preparing to purify the room. With a powerful leap, a completely naked Kamui-san launches himself towards the spirits, driving them back with his overwhelming energy in a chaotic, purifying dance. And then the cycle repeats. At exactly 6:30 a.m., the alarm on Shizuka's phone rings. She groans, her eyes still closed as she murmurs, "It's time to wake up again." Her eyes snap open, and just like the day before, her morning peace is shattered by the sight of a half-naked Kamui-san right in front of her. She lets out a familiar shriek of shock and exasperation. Even Koichi seems stunned by the recurring spectacle. AAA. Shizuka screams, her voice a mix of fury and resignation. "Mr. Kamui? Again. This guy. Unbelievable." It seems this chaotic morning routine is her new normal. On a dark, winding mountain road, a man in a leopard print shirt is startled while driving. His friend points out a young woman in a black dress standing alone on the roadside. The car screeches to a halt beside her. Soon, the woman is in their car. The men, with lecherous smiles, cruise along, music blasting, while she sits quietly in the back. They start harassing her, asking if her boyfriend abandoned her, and making other suggestive comments, clearly with ill intentions. Suddenly, the driver's face contorts in terror. He screams that the brakes are out, he can't stop the car. As the men panic and sweat, desperately trying to regain control, A calm, eerie chuckle is heard from the back seat. The woman in the back erupts into a horrifying, wide-mouthed laugh, holding up grotesque masks that mimic the men's terrified expressions. It's clear she is no ordinary victim. The car crashes violently into a guardrail. The men are left bloody and injured, while a mysterious woman looks down on the wreckage, a sinister smile on her face. On this same accident-prone road, ghostly voices whisper, "Coming," hinting that the horror is far from over. As the disembodied voices continue their chant, a white van drives up the winding path, heading towards the scene. The same woman now stands before the van, but her demeanor has completely changed. She looks terrified, crying that there's no escape. Two girls step out of the van, one with orange hair and another with black hair, asking if she's okay. The woman, now appearing drenched and distressed, asks them for a ride down the mountain. The black-haired girl, Shizuka, enthusiastically agrees and welcomes her into the van, much to the surprise of her companion. As soon as the woman enters, a horrible smell fills the van. Shizuka, covering her nose, asks if she's all right while the woman simply says, "Yeah." The group sits in tense silence. A two-tone figure, Koichi, eyes the new passenger with suspicion as Shizuka opens a window. Koichi subtly tugs on Shizuka's shirt, trying to get her attention with a worried look. Shizuka turns to Koichi, asking what's wrong. Koichi just looks on nervously, while the mysterious woman sweats, sensing the shift in atmosphere. The driver, a blonde man named Kamui-san, asks why they've stopped, mentioning he was taking a break. The woman looks back at him, her act of a victim becoming more convincing as she stammers that she doesn't want to get into an accident. Her internal monologue reveals her growing panic. She realizes these people have somehow figured her out and that she might not be able to escape. A strange creaking sound fills the van, and her face twists in pure terror as she wonders what's wrong with the vehicle. The scene flashes to an old tale. This place is prone to accidents because of a mountain road spirit, said to be pale, long-haired, and drenched, causing drivers to lose control. Kamui-san looks at her through the rearview mirror, noting that she is drenched in water. The woman cornered desperately claims it's because she has a high metabolism and feels hot. Realizing her act has failed, the spirit sheepishly gives up. She tells the group she'll just walk and moves to exit the van, hoping to make a quick escape. However, the door handle won't budge. A glance at Kamui-san's cold reflection in the mirror tells her she's been trapped. With a desperate cry, she resolves to break free just as her escape is cut short. The woman feels a strange sensation and looks down at her body in horror as she is violently pulled back from the door. Outside, thick strands of black hair begin to wrap around the van, trapping it completely. The woman screams, realizing her own power is being used to ensnare her. Kamui-san leans in and coldly informs her that the creaking sounds were her own doing. He tells the terrified spirit not to worry, because he's taking her straight to hell. As the van is completely engulfed by hair, the atmosphere oddly shifts, with hearts and romantic moans surrounding the vehicle, signaling the start of Kamui-san's bizarre exorcism. The spirit pleads for him to listen, while Shizuka sits with her back turned, enduring the humiliating sounds. Kamui-san coldly dismisses the spirit's pleas, reminding her that the dead can't beg to live. Desperate, the spirit argues that she isn't the only mountain road spirit and questions why she is the one being targeted. In the midst of the chaotic and suggestive exorcism, Kamui-san reveals a shocking truth. She is the sixth spirit they've dealt with that day, using Shizuka as bait. The intimate exorcism continues as the spirit tries to protest, insisting that she isn't finished talking. Finally, the spirit confesses her true, surprisingly mundane motive. She promises she's not evil and never meant to hurt anyone. All she ever wanted was for people to notice her. With a final, explosive burst of energy, the spirit is exorcised. The dark hair vanishes, and her body is violently expelled from the van. Shizuka, looking utterly drained and humiliated from the ordeal, apologizes to a disheveled Koichi. Exhausted and furious, Shizuka collapses onto the seat, yelling at Kamui-san for his terrible methods as they drive away from the scene. Later, Shizuka complains to Kamui-san, lamenting how their planned picnic turned into a traffic patrol mission. Shizuka is relieved to finally be heading home, but Kamui-san calmly informs her that was just a slight detour and the real job is next. Horrified, Shizuka realizes she took the wrong bus and screams in absolute frustration. The car's fuel gauge is on empty. A concerned man asks a soaking wet Kamui if he is all right. Kamui, looking drained, simply states that they are out of gas and will have to hitchhike. As a car drives off into the distance, a person looks back in sheer panic. It seems their troubles are not over, as a report had just mentioned a wet blonde spirit appearing on this very mountain. The scene flashes back, recapping the beginning of their wild ride. Shizuka and Mr. Kamui, along with Koichi, were on a spirit-busting traffic patrol disguised as a picnic. The situation quickly escalates as Shizuka, driving the van, screams in terror, telling Koichi to buckle up because the spirits are coming and it's all over for them. The source of Shizuka's terror is revealed, an old woman with a walker, moving at an incredible speed. This jet-powered grandma is a feared legend among motorists, and if she passes you, tragedy is said to unfold. Completely losing her cool, Shizuka screams that they are going to die. Annoyed, Koichi, who is being squashed under Shizuka, simply tells her to shut up. Tired of the chaotic driving, Koichi decides to take matters into her own hands. She demands the controls, telling the little girl to get out of her way. With Koichi in control, the van starts to drift skillfully. She boasts that her driving skills were honed on the racetracks of the Meiji era. Shizuka is shocked at the sudden change in Koichi, who now seems possessed by the spirit of a stern woman who declares that women should have the right to drive. Terrified, Shizuka screams that she wants the cute Koichi back and begs her to stop the car. Shizuka stares in horror, realizing that as long as they don't get passed by the jet-powered grandma, they might be safe. But her hope quickly turns to despair. It wasn't just one spirit. An entire horde of elderly women, all with terrifying faces, are chasing them down the road at full speed. Shizuka screams in absolute terror. It's a horde. Shizuka cries out that there are too many of them. The spirits, known as the jet-powered grandma class, have various types like Boost Grandma and Leaping Grandma. Koichi explains that the reason they are wearing swimsuits is because the spirits are jealous of their young bodies. A horrifying close-up shows one of the grandma spirits licking her lips with a long tongue, eager to catch up to them. Shizuka panics as one of the spirits leaps onto the van. They are catching up. Just as a spirit with a gaping mouth is about to attack, something catches its attention, stopping it in its tracks. Suddenly, Mr. Kamui appears, standing calmly on the roof of the moving van. Both Shizuka and Koichi look up in surprise. One of the spirits whispers that it's starting. The lead grandma spirit lunges at Kamui, who stands unfazed on a van's roof. Shizuka shouts his name in alarm. Instead of fighting back, Kamui swiftly pulls his own shirt over the attacking spirit's head, blinding it. As the spirit is disoriented, Kamui dramatically removes his shirt, revealing his muscular physique. Shizuka can only stare in shock as he begins to strip. The grandma spirit, now free from the shirt, has a complete change of heart. Seeing Kamui's exposed rear, she blushes, and her expression turns from monstrous to one of pure delight. Kamui strikes a pose, and with a flash of light, the spirits are instantly exorcised. One of the cleansed grandmas looks on with a blissful expression, stating that her eyes have been cleansed. Shizuka asks in disbelief if they were exorcised just from looking. Another person explains that for these spirits, capturing the body of youth has been their objective since birth. Their singular goal is to capture the essence of youth, a desire that has driven them their entire existence, now fixated on the spectacle before them. While Kamui puts on a show for everyone, Koichi watches with intense jealousy. Shizuka, on the other hand, can only stammer, completely flustered by the bizarre and erotic spectacle unfolding before her. Suddenly, black straps begin to wrap around Kamui's body. Trying to shield the innocent, Shizuka instinctively yells for Koichi not to look, attempting to maintain some modesty in the chaotic situation. Shizuka screams for it to stop, but it's too late. Out of jealousy or mischief, Koichi has created something even more scandalous, a full-body harness for Kamui. Shizuka's main concern now is that he might take off his trunks next. However, his audience seems to be enjoying the show. The cleansed spirits, now appearing as beautiful young women, look on with blissful, blushing faces, declaring the performance to be utterly purifying. Kamui strikes a final pose on the van's roof, a silhouette of triumph against an explosive background. This is a revolution in entertainment. But the show isn't over yet. He notices there's still one more spirit left. The final, most powerful grandma spirit lunges towards Kamui with a blush on her face. She's going for it. Shizuka and Koichi, can only watch in horror at the impending impact. As Kamui and the spirit make contact in a bizarrely intimate embrace, the scene triggers a strange sense of déjà vu for Shizuka. She feels a familiar sensation, one that reminds her of something from when she was young. Meanwhile, the out-of-control van barrels towards a dead end, with a large no-entry sign marking the end of the road. The climactic encounter sends the final grandma spirit flying into the sky, seemingly in a state of pure ecstasy. The threat is finally over. With the evil spirits gone, the van comes to a stop on the quiet, winding mountain pass. The exorcism is complete, and the spirits fully disperse. Utterly spent from his performance, Mr. Kamui collapses and falls from the roof of the van. After the intense exorcism, the van sputters to a halt. The gas tank is empty. A concerned companion asks if Kamui-san is all right, but he can only stare blankly, drenched and exhausted from the ordeal. Stranded, they realize they have no choice but to hitchhike. Meanwhile, a passing car speeds away in terror. The driver had just witnessed what they reported as a wet blonde spirit on the mountain, not realizing it was the very human and very tired Kamui-san. The story begins by introducing a terrifying urban legend, one that has shaken the entire nation of Japan. The scene shifts to an elementary school where a young boy is leaving for the day, waving goodbye to his friends as he heads home. Suddenly, the boy stops in his tracks, his attention caught by Shizuka, who is standing nearby in a rather revealing outfit. He can't help but stare, completely mesmerized. Startled and flustered, the boy shouts and makes a run for it, leaving Shizuka standing there. The boy regroups with his friends, and they all start gossiping about Shizuka, labeling her as a female pervert because of her clothes. They decide she must be lurking nearby. Meanwhile, Kamui-san is getting frustrated. The plan to preserve peace isn't working as intended, and the other members of his group are eager to find the target. Kamui-san calmly states that this is all part of the plan. He addresses his team, which includes Shizuka and a smaller girl. He asks if there are any questions before dismissing them, but Shizuka quickly raises her hand. Shizuka complains about her outfit, but Kamui-san explains that it's a necessary evil. He reveals their target is the Kukusei-kana, an urban legend who preys on elementary school kids, and this outfit is the bait. He elaborates on the legend of the Kukusei-kana, or the slit-mouthed woman. She stalks children, asking if she's pretty. A wrong answer means death, and a right answer means she'll make you look just like her. Kamui-san warns a frightened Shizuka to be extremely careful, as the Kukusei-kana is a powerful legend. Shizuka hides, waiting for the target to appear. She worries that her conspicuous outfit will attract the police before the ghost, muttering to herself that she'll try again when the coast is clear. Suddenly, a voice says, "Hey," from behind her. Shizuka turns in shock to see a figure in a trench coat, holding a menacing sickle. The figure is the Kukusei-kana. She leans in close and whispers the dreaded question, "Am I pretty?" Shizuka is frozen with fear. Kamui-san's voice echoes in her mind, reminding her not to answer. She knows she can't respond, but the ghost relentlessly repeats the word, "pretty." The Kukusei-kana ominously says, "Then," as she reaches for her surgical mask, with a sinister smile underneath. She pulls the mask away, revealing a grotesque, bloody mouth slit from ear to ear. "How about now?" she asks, her terrifying grin filling the frame. Paralyzed with terror, Shizuka can only stare as the monstrous figure looms over her, sickle ready. Snapping out of her fear, Shizuka screams and runs for her life. The Kukusei-kana is right behind her, a determined look on her face. There is absolutely no escape. The legend says that Kukusei-kana can run at an incredible 100 kilometers per hour, far faster than any human. Just as Shizuka is about to be caught, Koichi appears out of nowhere, complaining about how bothersome the situation is. Koichi tells the little girl to keep going while he blocks the spirit. Shizuka hesitates, telling him not to be reckless, but ultimately apologizes and continues to run. Koichi confidently faces the Kukusei-kana, who seems to have noticed something unusual about him. "As if a human needs to worry about me," he says with a smirk. Koichi begins his counterattack not with force, but with mockery. He taunts the spirit about her slick, gelled-down hairstyle, a comment that clearly hits a nerve. As the Kukusei-kana seethes with rage, Koichi throws her own threat back at her, shouting, "If I catch you, there will be no escape." Her anger is now palpable. His heroic intervention is short-lived, as Koichi is unceremoniously taken out and ends up with his feet sticking out of a pile of trash bags. From a distance, Shizuka watches as the Kukusei-kana realizes she has miscalculated. The hair gel has made her hair so stiff that she can't move properly. Shizuka cheers her on to escape while she can and flees the scene. Undeterred, the Kukusei-kana stalks through the empty school hallways, her footsteps echoing as she makes her way towards the infirmary. Inside, a terrified Shizuka hides. The Kukusei-kana enters, a sinister smile on her slit mouth, and approaches a bed with someone lying under the covers. Suddenly, the covers are thrown back to reveal a shirtless Kamui-san, who sits up with a dramatic flair, startling the ghost. The Kukusei-kana lets out a scream and turns to flee, asking who is there, clearly not expecting this turn of events. The scene quickly escalates. Kamui-san begins the exorcism, which turns out to be an intense, intimate act on the infirmary bed. Underneath the bed, Shizuka lies on the floor, blushing and covering her ears as the bed rattles above her, accompanied by sounds of pleasure. The exorcism reaches its peak, a blinding flash of light signifying the spirit's release, while a flustered Shizuka looks on. Peeking out from under the bed, a weary and blushing Shizuka calls out to Kamui-san, asking if it's finally over. But as she looks up, she sees the spirit, who now appears different, looking down at her with a confused expression. The spirit, believing Kamui-san's attempt failed, tries to use her powers again, only to find that something has changed. Kamui-san leans in close to the now vulnerable spirit and whispers, "Very pretty, of course," finally giving her the validation she sought. He continues to praise her features, her white skin, dark eyes, and long hair, while Shizuka watches in bewilderment. The former spirit, now blushing, asks if he's actually complimenting her. Finally, he leans in and kisses her, the scars around her mouth still visible, but no longer a source of horror. He gazes at her and tells her that even her wide mouth is beautiful, completely dispelling the curse born from her insecurity. Kamui-san explains that the Kukusei-kana's existence was tied to her appearance. Once she was reassured of her beauty, she was able to move on. He clarifies his method. The intimate act was merely an opening. The real exorcism was the pillow talk afterward, which can be more important than the act itself. Shizuka finally understands. "So that's why you had to do it in an infirmary?" she asks, realizing the need for pillows for pillow talk. Then a thought strikes her. Where's Koichi? Meanwhile, Koichi has been rescued from the bin. Kamui-san introduces him to a group of stuffed animals as their new friend. As for how Koichi will escape this new predicament, that's a story for another time.